Hi everyone, my name is Anastasiia, and I was thinking about the title a lot. I had like 10 options to choose from. The one I chose is Drowning in Distraction, Starving for Purpose. A world that has everything except meaning. Today, without further introductions, I wanted to talk to you about meaning. Meaning, what role does it play in our daily lives? How often do we actually stop and think about it? It's definitely not something we consider on our day-to-day basis in our routines. It's not a thought people get while getting dressed and waking up in the morning or brewing their coffee. It's not a part of our daily checkup list before we exit the house. Do you have everything with me? Keys, driver's license, meaning? Not really. And when we do consider it, it's perceived as something abnormal by both popular culture and its numberless jokes about middle age crisis and existential purposes, as well as the industry and the medical sphere itself. It's called crisis for a reason, right? But whether we realize it or not, meaning shapes our choices, fuels our ambition, and in many ways defines our happiness. Meaning provides an inertia-powered motion of life with a direct, deliberate direction, which we are free to choose, making it simultaneously powerful and empowering. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor, dedicated most of his life to exploring the concept. Before World War II, he was already a promising specialist in the fields of neuroresearch and psychiatry, but his life took a harrowing turn when he was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps. Viktor Frankl was deported to Theresienstadt ghetto on September 25, 1942. Later in October 1944, he was transferred to Auschwitz, and from there he was moved to Kaufering, a sub-camp of Dachau, which he remained until the liberation in 1945. In fact, right before entering a concentration camp, he was working on a literature piece which would include insights both from his own empirical research and scientific methods about meaning and role of meaning in human life, as well as generally in therapy, compared to other methods which he argued to introduce logotherapy, a method of therapy looking for meaning and analyzing meaning as the main drive of humans instead of power, like in classic psychoanalysis, or desire, if we're talking about Freud. However, upon his survival at the camp, all of his drafts and notes were destroyed by Nazi soldiers, along with his belongings. The only thing they couldn't destroy, though, was his memory. Little did Frankl know how vital his knowledge on how to research for meaning, even in any conditions he was put into, and in new circumstances he found himself would be useful. With a great deal of luck, as he himself mentions, and many tiny yet destiny-carrying accidents and detrimental coincidences he encountered while in concentration camp, he managed to survive. After being liberated, he came back to his fields of expertise and interest and delved even deeper into search for meaning and purpose. Using all of the knowledge gained empirically and firsthand, Frankl finished, as he often referred to it, the work of his life, called Man's Search for Meaning, a book that summarizes everything he knew about meaning. The book begins with a beautiful quote, thought which Frankl carries not only throughout his whole book, but throughout his whole life, and it's a Nietzsche quote, which goes like, "He who has a why to live will bear with almost anyhow." Stripped of everything, he observed those who survived were not necessarily the strongest, but those who found any sort of meaning in their suffering. This book has been translated into 52 languages and sold over 16 million copies. It was in this book that he first introduced logotherapy, a form of therapy which discovers meaning in human life instead of trying to analyze the trauma. And his message has since inspired millions, proving that even in the most unimaginable conditions, we have the power to choose how we respond. And the light will shine through the darkness, at lux in tenebris lucet. Frankl believed that meaning can be found in three main ways: for creating, for experiencing, and for suffering. And if we talk about meaning for creation, then think about a great artist, an engineer who designs revolutionary technology, a scientist who dedicates their life to finding a cure, or a teacher who shapes young minds. Their craft is their purpose. Their work gives their life meaning. When we pour ourselves into something greater than us, our careers, our passion, our ideas, we create significance. Not only it applies to the wider definition of a calling, but also to doing deeds, the sole act of creation of anything, even the tiniest things, which don't seem extraordinary on the first sight, like cooking or building something for your home. Include that magical factor of creation to it. And the fulfillment, it's not just from the result, it's from the process itself. In the dedication, in the act of bringing something into the world that wasn't there before. It's believing in one that makes impact. If we talk about meaning for experience, Frankl refers to it mostly as meaning for love. And love is a profound source of meaning. Frankl argues that alternative to finding meaning through creation is doing it for experiencing anything, starting from another person to a feeling. He believed that experiencing can be as valuable as achieving is therapeutic because it compensates for one-sided emphasis on the external world achievement at the expense of internal world of experience. And not purely in romantical sense. Have you ever been so captivated by a piece of music that you felt it in your bones? Or looked at someone and thought, this person makes life worth living? Sometimes meaning isn't about what we produce, it's about what we witness. The love we feel for another person, the admiration we experience while observing nature, the joy of sharing a moment with a loved one. These are experiences that make life rich and profound. Meaning is found in presence, in truly seeing, in truly feeling. There's one episode in the book where, in the middle of a fever dream, he sees his wife, where they've been separated in the beginning. And there is no better way to describe it but to provide an actual quote. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is said into songs by so many poets, proclaimed as a final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the highest goal to which man can aspire. And I grasp the truth of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world may still know bliss, be it for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved, in a position of utter desolation, when man cannot express himself in positive action, when his only achievement may consist of enduring his sufferings in the right way, an honorable way. In such a position, man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, achieve fulfillment. For the first time in my life, I was able to understand the meaning of the words, "The angel are lost in perpetual contemplation of an infinite glory." My mind still clung to the image of my wife. A thought crossed my mind, I didn't even know she was alive. I knew only one thing, which I have learned well by now. Love goes very far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. When it comes to meaning for suffering, here is where Frankl philosophy gets most radical, the idea that meaning can be found even in suffering. And this is definitely not to glorify pain, but to recognize that when suffering is unavoidable, we still have a choice. Unnecessary suffering is masochism, as Frankl argues in his book. We can let it break us, but we can also let it shape us. Frankl himself, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, witnessed firsthand how those who found meaning even in their suffering had the strength to survive. He saw that a person who has a why can endure almost anyhow. History full of people who transformed their deepest pain and their suffering into their greatest purpose. Activists, survivors, leaders who turned personal tragedy into a force for good change in this world. And what does it mean for us? I've been talking for a long time now, but what insights can we carry out of that? So Frankl postulates that life is potentially meaningful under any circumstances we can imagine, under the most miserable and shatterable things human mind can only bear and imagine to bear. That we can still turn those things because human capacity to creatively turn life's negative aspects into something positive or constructive. So what does it actually mean? It means that no matter where we are in life, we can find meaning. If we're fortunate enough to create, we should create. If we have the opportunity to love and experience loving, we should embrace it fully. And when life presents us with suffering, we must remember that even then, we have the power to find purpose. Frankl's message is simple but profound. We don't just seek meaning, we decide it. We create it. And the question is not what is the meaning of life, but rather, what is the meaning I choose to give my life? The last quote I want to mention today is, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. And that is entirely up to us. Thank you.